Bartolomevka is a village in southeast Belarus, and it is entirely contaminated with radioactivity. What people in Japan now fear is dreadful reality here. A huge swath of land has been rendered uninhabitable by a nuclear disaster. These houses had to be abandoned after a reactor exploded at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine in 1986. Radioactive particles were carried 140 kilometers on the wind and in rain clouds, and deposited here in huge amounts. Here, one is exposed in just 3 months to the amount of radiation scientists say is just about acceptable over an entire year. Shortly after I arrive, the police turn up. These officers enforce the exclusion zone. I have a permit to be here, otherwise I would have to pay a fine equivalent to 90 euros. They are not happy about being in such a dangerous area, but they say they have no choice. It's very spooky here. At this now abandoned school, pupils wrote on the wall, "How will we live in the future?" before they were evacuated. In Belarus alone, 135,000 people had to leave their homes and be relocated. In another village, I meet Yelena Bulchenko. She has remained here in the middle of the danger zone, as if nothing had happened. She's now 80 years old. She's proud of the mushrooms she has gathered. She's selecting some to give to me, but I would never eat anything grown here. I ask why she stayed when almost everybody else left. She says the authorities tried several times to take her away, but that she always refused. I won't leave my village. It's my home, she told them. And as to the radiation, well, it's the same all over the world. I still gather berries and mushrooms here, and I eat them. Her husband and her son, who also stayed after the Chernobyl disaster, have since died. But she says their deaths had nothing to do with the radiation. I'm aghast, but I try to understand why they chose to stay, and why she refuses to leave her house. Radiation is, after all, an invisible enemy. She says the water from the well tastes as good as it always did. It's time for me to leave the radioactive forests. Experts at Greenpeace say one should not spend more than a couple of hours in the exclusion zone without special protective clothing. I head south toward the city of Gomel, 40 kilometers away. There, too, radioactive rain fell after Chernobyl. In Gomel, I meet the radiation expert Yakov Kenigsberg. He spent weeks working on the devastated reactor at Chernobyl right after it exploded. Now he heads Belarus's National Commission on Radiation Protection. That's probably one reason why he has such a positive take on the situation. Chernobyl hardly influences people's lives here nowadays, says Professor Kenigsberg. We have things under control. Right after the accident, there was a lot of radioactive iodine in the air and in food. No measures were taken to prevent thyroid cancer, so the incidence rose sharply. Thyroid cancer is an enduring, serious problem, and a special clinic was set up in Gomel. Head physician Maria Tolupova tells me that after Chernobyl, the incidence of thyroid cancer among children soared to 45 times what it had been before. Donations and specialists from Germany helped bring diagnostic techniques and treatment in Gomel up to modern standards.
Dr.
Tulupova explains that radiation from Chernobyl did the most damage to unborn babies and children up to the age of 16. Their thyroid glands tended to absorb a particularly large amount of radioactive iodine. The clinic here has treated more than 160,000 people. One of them is 26-year-old Natasha Karavayeva. As a child, she had 3 operations for thyroid cancer. She still has to have a checkup every year. Natasha tells me that watching the news on television about the disaster at Fukushima has awakened many memories.
I'm
not only worried about people in Japan, but about the entire world, she says. Radiation is a danger for all of us. We experienced it ourselves. The accident was in Ukraine, but we fell ill here. Natasha has to go to work, so I go and visit her parents, Vladimir and Yelena. They say they still feel guilty for having failed to protect their daughter from the radiation back then. Natasha was 1 year old when the reactor exploded. Yelena Karavayeva tells me her daughter was one of the first to fall ill. There was nobody to turn to. Thyroid cancer had been extremely rare in Belarus until then. But I knew the thyroid was an important organ, she said, and I asked myself what it would mean for Natasha's future if it had to be removed. What was going to happen? I had many sleepless nights. It still pains me to think about it. These words leave a deep impression. My next stop is the Belarusian Institute of Radiology. The symbol for radiation at the entrance has been made to look like a flower, which strikes me as a cynical attempt to downplay the dangers. The director, Dr. Viktor Averin, does his best to allay any fears one may have. He says he wishes to stress that Belarus has a very strict radiation monitoring regime. It guarantees that there is no radiation in food produced in the country. Dr. Averin assures me everything you can buy in our shops is safe. At Gomel's market hall, I wonder if that's really the case. It is true the permissible levels are low, but are they enforced? How strict is the monitoring? Can one really go shopping without any worries? This woman tells me that checks are carried out and that farmers have to be very careful as to where they graze their animals. But she says we have to eat something and stay here, so why ask too many questions? That's just the way it is. People in Gomel are still suffering from the consequences of the Chernobyl disaster. I only hope people in Japan will be spared a similar fate. I feel lucky that I can leave again and go far away from the danger zone here in Belarus.